Hi again. Welcome back and hope you enjoy the following 10-minute tutorial about the sampler stitches you'll be learning for your free pattern, Believe. Before I get started, I'd like to give you a bit of sampler history. Embroidery has been around for millennia, and the origin of many of our stitches are at least that old as well. But we can trace back the origin of counted sampler stitches we now use to the Middle Ages in Europe. At that time, there was more trade with the Orient, and many noble families would enhance their newly imported silks with embroidery. Women of higher birth would use embroidery to enhance their clothes and linens. Many of them would record their favorite animals or plant motifs, and even borders of stitches. Paper patterns were not used as often. Instead, embroiderers used narrow strips of linen to record the sampler stitches they liked. They would then roll up their sample strips and put them in their sewing pockets. These strips came to be known as samplers, kind of like a cloth notebook of various patterns collected over time. The sampler became the stitched resume of all the sampler stitches an upper-class girl had learned. The more sampler stitches in her sampler, the higher her status. So now let me show you how to do the 3 different stitches in your free pattern, Believe. I recommend that you get a scrap piece of 25 or 28 count linen or doodle cloth and grab a needle and any color leftover floss. Practice along with me right now so you can learn them. If you are unfamiliar with cross-stitching on linen, we have a special course called Introduction to Cross-Stitching on Linen on our website, but I'll go over the details in a bit. Meanwhile, just look at how easy it is to do each of the 3 stitches in your free pattern. Here we are in my stitching studio. I'm going to show you how to get started with the herringbone stitch. You come up at the little stitch in the corner, and that is 2 4 threads from the corner and 2 4 6 up. Then we count down over 2 and 2. So just like a cross stitch, it goes 2 and 2 fabric threads. I always count over fabric threads. Come up 2 fabric threads to the left, and here's where it gets tricky. You want to be able to reach all the way across like it shows in the pattern. So it's 2 4, 2 4 6, and that's where we go down. And now we're going to come up 2 fabric threads to the left, and again we're going to be counting over 2 4, and we come down and count to the left over 2 fabric threads. There we go. And then what I usually do is I count up over 2 so that I'm even at the top, and then I count over 2 4 more. That gets every stitch is actually over 2 4 6 and 2 4 6. But because you've got other stitches in the way, I use those other stitches so that I don't have to count the full 2 4 6, 2 4 6, 2 4 6. There, I'm at the end of my row, and I like using the sewing motion so I don't have to poke and pull, but if you poke and pull, that's not a problem. So in order to get to the next one, I just wanted to finish this one off, right? And I understand that the band actually ends here. Normally speaking, you would be counting over this way, and your stitch would go from here to there. But because the actual band, or the motif, stops here, I'm going to see if I can check my pattern and see approximately where I have put the last stitch, which would be 2 4 right there. So that's the last stitch of that row. Isn't that fun? The herringbone stitch is so cute, and in this case it's going to be dotted with either cross stitches or beads, depending on what you'd like to do in between. They really are going to look cute. Now we're going to start making the ray stitch. I was debating which color I would choose for the ray stitch because it is a nice little band that looks a little bit like grass. Go down here. So I decided that I was going to do an overdye. Now an overdye silk is extremely beautiful, but I use them not very often. I use them judiciously, only once in a while. and only when there's a fairly long protracted kind of pattern that is repeated all the time. So as you can see, the raised stitch really works well with an overdye, and you get this variety of color all the way along this band. A row of sampler stitches is called a band. So there we go. And as you can tell, I keep going down in the same hole. Never bring your needle up in a hole. You always, if you're sharing holes, you always share holes by going down into a filled hole, just like that. And now I would really like to do another raised stitch. Now, continuing on the raised stitch, I'm going to leave 2 fabric threads between each raised stitch, and I think that it looks nicer that way. I started off actually keeping them very close together, but I decided no, this particular band needs a little bit of space so that it's not a one continuous line. And so then we come up at the outside of the raised stitch and we go down in the same hole just like the previous raised stitch. Now that's starting to look much nicer than if they were all close together, which is what I thought I was going to do. And the last stitch, and the last stitch right here. And look how there's nice pink silk coming up now. The overdye is really beautiful. And this next stitch has started out pink. This is what I love about overdye threads. So pretty when you can start stitching with them. So I'd like you to do the raised stitch on your free pattern and complete this entire band. Yeah. Another wonderful sampler stitch. Carry on. So now we're going to do the little upright crosses in the clouds. These are the cross stitches, the white cross stitches that are the clouds. And we're going to do some odd looking little stitches. They are upright crosses, but they don't quite cover the cross where the crosses usually cover, which is in the middle of the square. They're kind of up and they're centered actually in the cloud itself. So I'm going to show you how to do them on the linen. Now I'm showing you where to count from. You count from over here and you count over to the left 2 and then 1 down. And this is not easy, so when you're doing these, make sure that you count carefully and pay attention to the diagram, because there are diagrams, so that you'll be able to place your upright crosses very easily. So what I have done is I've made tiny upright crosses, not very big ones, that basically just cover 2 fabric threads at a time. Then there's a gap of 2 fabric threads, so we're going to start again here and make another upright cross right there. And we make the crosses as we go because we don't want to have to come back. We just do them one at a time like this, and the next one is going to be below this one. We cover 2 fabric threads and go back down and cross this cross in an upright fashion. And then of course we're going to do the last one, which is the opposite. You count over this way and you count over 2 fabric threads and 1 down. There we go. There are the 4 upright crosses in one of the clouds. Aren't they adorable? You can easily end your thread behind the white cross stitches on the back of your fabric. So have fun making those little upright crosses in the clouds. Those are the 3 sampler stitches that you can include in your Believe Free pattern. Just remember, you don't have to include them. You can substitute them with crosses or backstitching instead. But they are beautiful, and I say, try them. They could be so much fun to learn, and they can enhance your little pattern so much. These are just some of the many, many sampler stitches you could learn. I wish I could teach all the sampler stitches to all the cross stitchers in the world. Some years ago, I designed the Beyond Cross Stitch series of learning patterns. They were created to help stitchers just like you move from cross stitches to sampler stitches. And then last year, I created the Beyond Cross Stitch video courses based on the first 30 Beyond Cross Stitch patterns. Each Beyond Cross Stitch course consists of 10 different sampler stitches and 10 matching downloadable patterns. So for instance, in the Beyond Cross Stitch Level 1 course, you would learn 10 basic counted sampler stitches. Beyond Cross Stitch Level 2 contains 10 freestyle stitches like the French knots or the lazy daisies, which I show by using silk ribbon, although they can be stitched with other threads as well. And Beyond Cross Stitch Level 3 would teach you 10 intermediate sampler stitches and techniques, all frequently used in my designs. Each Beyond Cross Stitch course is on our online school, which we call the Victoria Sampler Academy. Each course consists of very clear close-up videos so that anyone can learn sampler stitches. All courses are self-paced, meaning you can go as quickly or as slowly as you like from the comfort of your own home. The courses are also progressive, which means that you will be guided gradually to add to your knowledge, one stitch at a time. Basic to ever more complicated stitches. To give you a place to ask questions and to celebrate your achievements with other students, we've also created a special student Facebook group, which you will be invited to join after enrolling. There you can ask questions and share your photos. Trained and experienced moderators are there to answer any questions you may have. You can register for the Beyond Cross Stitch courses anytime on our website. Just go to victoriasampler.com, look under Shop, and then hit Courses to find them all. The Beyond Cross Stitch courses themselves are individually priced at about $60 each because they include all the patterns. Today, there is a limited time offer to register and save. Beyond Cross Stitch Level 1 usually costs $60, Beyond Cross Stitch Level 2 usually costs $63, and Beyond Cross Stitch Level 3 costs $65. That's a total of $188 for all 3 levels of our Beyond Cross Stitch courses. But right now, all 3 Beyond Cross Stitch courses are only $99. And wait, there's more. The Introduction to Cross Stitching on Linen, usually priced at $12, will be added for free if you register for all 3 Beyond Cross Stitch courses.